Chris Lee and Joey Dwyer of Vandy Sports here from SEC Media Day in Birmingham, Alabama at the Grand Bohemian Hotel. Joey's first trip to SEC Media Day, my first trip in a while. Let's talk about Jerry Stackhouse and players and what they said. And look, let's be honest. At these events, if you're following the team, paying attention, there's generally not a whole lot of stuff that comes out of interest. But there was one or two things today that piqued my interest. And I think the biggest one would have been the scheduling philosophy that he addressed, and he talked about now they know they just need to blow the teams in their non-conference schedule to oblivion and quit messing around with combinations and this and that. And so I think now we know the philosophy going into the year.
Yeah, and it's a lot different. Jerry Stackhouse said today, when in Rome, do what the Romans do what everybody else does. We're going to schedule teams that are competitive, but we can beat by a lot, and we're going to try to beat the hell out of them. And, I mean, I don't think you can argue with the strategy too much there. They didn't do that last year, and really hampered them down the stretch as their metrics were really low heading towards the end of the year, partly because of that margin of victory. Obviously, some other factors went into that Grambling State loss, Southern Miss loss, some losses early in SEC play and throughout the non-conference slate. But feels like that could help Vanderbilt kind of get rolling here, and I think maybe the best part of that non-conference schedule is the first four games that are all kind of games that you should win by a lot. And it feels like Vanderbilt, if it changes its philosophy and can go with maybe a tighter rotation like Stackhouse kind of hinted at, maybe you win and maybe you get the metrics up a little bit. They're, 70-something in Ken Palm right now, and you're going to take a little bit to get that up. It's easier to go down than up early in the year, but feels like early in the year if Vanderbilt can tighten up that rotation and win by a lot, like Jerry Stackhouse said, maybe it could take a step forward.
Yeah, and the issue last year is the net tracks pretty closely with Ken Palm, and it takes into account margin of victory. And I think for the year they outscored teams 10, 12 points, and so that's not going to reflect a very good team in the computers. And so I think that was the issue. Now, look, I think if you do it based on resume, they had a pretty good case. But the bigger issue last year was they just didn't play well in non-conference. It wasn't just not blowing teams out. It was losing games to Grambling and to Southern Miss, which ended up being not a bad loss. But the thing this year with the schedule, I think there's maybe a couple of teams. Memphis is probably an NCAA tournament team, and there's a couple others. I think Texas Tech is probably a barely get-in team according to the bracketologists, and NC State might be an NIT team. So really there's not a lot of opportunities for huge wins on there, but you got two teams in this league last year that had the blueprint for doing that. Mississippi State had a couple of challenging games, won those both, rolled over everybody else, and Missouri kind of did the same thing. Didn't play a lot of teams, but had a couple of decent non-conference wins and then blew through the portion of their schedule that they should have blown through. So I think if you are Jerry Stackhouse, that's your formula. Try to obliterate some teams and then pick up a couple of good wins, and you have two teams in the league that kind of did that a year ago.
Yeah, and I think there's optimism that plan can kind of work. Feels like the backcourt with the two veterans to kind of get the offense rolling earlier. Jerry Stackhouse also was pretty optimistic about his transfer portal guys, Evan Taylor, Van Allen Lubin. Maybe they can hit the ground running a little bit earlier. I think Ezra Manjon is really the key cog here who's really going to kind of run this offense and get them rolling early. And I think that's maybe reflected in some of Stackhouse's and Manjon's comments today, where they seem pretty optimistic they can get rolling early, not only against those cupcake teams, but also against the teams that matter and the teams that Vanderbilt's going to have to beat in order to build their resume out a little bit. Obviously, the other games matter for margin of victory, but it feels like Vanderbilt could maybe capitalize on a few of those early chances because of their guard play, and I think that was reflected in their confidence level today.
Yeah. Not much else that Jerry Stackhouse said that really got a lot of attention. I think there were two things. There was the Lee Dort thing. I think he said he's going to miss 3 to 4 more weeks.
Said he might not be healthy. Said he might not be fully healthy till SEC play, which is a little concerning.
Yeah, that is concerning for a team that needs a big. The other one, the Jalen DeLoach comment. I don't know if you caught that. That one caught a little fire on Twitter. Jalen DeLoach is at Georgia now. Probably will be one of their starters or close to it. They played him at VCU last year. Anthony Dasher from UJ Sports asked him a question about DeLoach, just trying to get some insight into his game, and Jerry Stackhouse said, well, I wouldn't recognize him if he walked into the room. And Deloach led VCU in rebounds against Vandy a year ago when they played. So that one could pop up on the bulletin board at some point.
It's equivalent to Tulu Smith from last year, who is one of the best, probably the best big in the league. I think that's what you love about Stack at times. And if you're losing, you hate it. If you're winning, you love it. And that's kind of how I think of these press conferences. The benevolent dictatorship comment, everyone loves it when they win. When they lose, everyone hates it, though. And I think that's kind of where we're at here. Some other things of note, J.Q. Roberts, Stack said could play the 5, so he could play 3 through 5. I think that's something worth noting. That's a guy who I generally think of as a 3-4. Maybe he slides to the 5 this year in the absence of Lee Dort and some of the lineup flexibility they have. Stack talked about how he thought maybe they have some more flexibility because of their length and because of their athleticism and depth. So maybe they could kind of survive without Lee Dort by playing some of that small ball, versatile lineup. And I think that's something that maybe they can hang their hat on. Colin Smith, he also brought up, could maybe play the 5, played the 5 in the SEC tournament. So obviously a lot to like from Stackhouse today just in terms of versatility and athleticism that he talked about. And I think he feels this is a deeper, more athletic team, even if it's not reflected in the rotation early on.
From the player standpoint, I was with Tyrin Lawrence, asked him a few questions, nothing earth-shattering. Did ask him about the Alabama game, the benching that turning the team around, and he had some comments in there. Don't remember exactly what he said, just about getting people's attention. And, look, everybody made fun of that last year, and it was a soundbite that we could all have a laugh over. The benevolent dictator comment was pretty funny, but it also worked. They started winning games after Alabama, put them through the floor of the gym in Tuscaloosa. So it was a much different season. So you can go to our YouTube channel and hear Tyrin Lawrence talk about that in his words. You talked to Ezra Manjon. I don't know if there's anything of substance there. But, again, generally speaking, at these things, there's not a whole lot of things that if you follow the team, you don't already know. Occasionally you get an update on an injury or something that you might not know. But I think those were the most notable things that I gathered from today. I don't know if anybody else dropped anything of note that you thought was worth the discussion here.
I think maybe the biggest thing I got from Ezra today was the sophomore seemed to be in a position to make a leap, and you can kind of tell when he's just politicking, and he's media trained. He knows what to say. He's a good guy. He's not going to let it slip. But it felt like what he was saying about Paul Lewis and about Colin Smith was real. He said, I asked him, who do you think is taking a leap this year? I mentioned the sophomores a little bit, and he said, man, Colin Smith is really taking a leap. He can get his own shot off the dribble now. He can do some good things for him in terms of rebounding and defending, and I think Ezra was really high on Colin Smith's game. And if Colin Smith and Evan Taylor can be guys that step up and are kind of complementary players to Vanderbilt, it's going to make Manjon's job a lot easier. Yeah. Also, wanted to touch on, there's a podcast that's coming out maybe after this, probably before this, with Ezra Manjon. Maybe my favorite interview I've ever done. So definitely check that out. It was from right over there a couple minutes ago. We talked about basketball in the presser, but outside of the presser, we talked about a lot more than that, and it actually didn't touch on basketball at all. So it was a really fun podcast, and definitely check that out. But Ezra said some good things today. Check out the podcast and the press conference.
Last thing a note, you heard this pop up with a couple of coaches today, and I can't remember who led off with it, but they said, I think it was Bruce Pearl, like, I don't know how you tell where, or maybe it's Musselman, how to rank anybody in this league because there's so much transition with rosters and transfers and like how do you rank anybody? Maybe it was Calipari now, I forgot, but it was earlier in the day. And I thought that's a good point because I'm trying to sit there and think, okay, how would I rank the teams 1 to 14? And I took a stab at it, but I don't know if it's right, and I have some questions about it. And I think the relevant point for Vanderbilt is this, Joey. In a year where there is a lot of transition and a lot of teams did bring in transfers, and everybody did because that's what you do in this league anymore. I still think they're behind the top half of the league, but it's going to be a crapshoot. It's going to be winning close games and things like that and staying healthy. And it's going to be a fun year because it's a super competitive league. And I think you even hear the coaches saying, hey, we're having a hard time knowing who's got what. You just don't know until they hit the floor. Yeah,
Lamont Paris brought it up, and it was even like this last year, but Lamont Paris brought up early in his presser, South Carolina's picked 14th in the league, and that's probably where I'd have him. But last year in the media poll, not a single team was ranked where they actually finished. And I don't think it's a testament to how dumb we are. I think it's a testament to how wide range the outcomes are.
Yes.
And it feels like the league this year, especially this year, is like that, and maybe moving forward will be like that. Vanderbilt, we don't even really know what it's going to be. We like some players they have. We think some players they have are really good. We don't know that, though. We know Ezra, Manjon, and Tyrin Lawrence are going to be good. Paul Lewis, we probably know. Maybe Colin Smith. Other than that, I have no idea how these guys are going to fit. You have a thought. I've shared my thoughts all offseason, but you really don't know, and I think that's kind of what Lamont Paris was getting at.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting. Even Miles Studi on his team, maybe he's more of an off-the-dribble threat. That's what he was kind of looking for. Michi Johnson, their point guard, told me that maybe Studi has improved there, and it seems like Johnson thinks that. But, man, I have no idea. I would probably have Vanderbilt about the 9, maybe 8, maybe 10, somewhere in that range. But who knows? They finished 4th in the league last year, and I wouldn't have had them that high. And we cover Vanderbilt. We were, I guess, as close to that team as anybody, and we still didn't know how good they would be. And I don't think we're haters either. We just didn't know what they had, and nobody really knows what anybody has.
Yeah, I look at the slate of teams in the league, and the thing that makes it hard is for every transfer from Power 5 school, there's 5 from a USC Upstate or a Northern Colorado or Furman or a Citadel or maybe somebody a little higher up than that, an MTSU, someone like that. But it just makes it tough because some of these kids pop and some of them don't. And to your topic, and I think we'll probably end here. I would probably rank them in that 8 to 11 or 12 range. 8 probably seems a little high. 9 is about where I'd put them. But you start looking at some of the rosters in these leagues, and there's some dudes in these leagues, and I think I don't know if they stack up with the top half, but on any given night, they proved a year ago, you just never know, and they beat some of those teams. So going to be very interesting to see how the season plays out.
Yeah, it feels like there's an internal confidence with this program. There always kind of feels like there is, though. I have no idea what they have, though, and even after today, I think we kind of have an idea of what they think they have and how they're going to approach things. Doesn't really matter what we think until about November, though, and people want to listen to us. I want people to listen to me, Chris. I do a lot of research. I watch a lot of tape, but today kind of brings out all the coaches saying, we don't know, and you guys don't know either, because we see the team every day and we don't know. So it'll be interesting. I think we got a better idea of kind of how Vanderbilt's rotation is going to settle and what it's going to look like. But other than that, I don't think we got a whole lot of groundbreaking stuff. Lee Dort's certainly a story. How they're going to approach non-conference play is a story. I think we have a better idea than we did going into today, and we feel a little more confidence from them. But we'll see. There's only so much you can learn from an event like this.
Yeah, to sum it up, Nate Oates, I'm not going to say he took a shot at me. I think he was having more fun with it than anything. He said, hey, we got picked 5th last year, 5th the year before, 5th the year before that. Well, they won the league twice. And in between, I think 5th was close to it. 5th might have been high. And he said, you guys don't know anything. But, again, I don't think it was a shot at us. I think he was having fun. The point is the league is unpredictable. You don't know how it's going to shape up till they take the floor. And, gosh, they'll be taking the floor in about 2 to 3 weeks. So we'll be there for it. All right, I'm Chris Lee of Vandy Sports. He's Joey Dwyer. Thanks for watching. We'll have plenty of coverage at Vandy Sports over the basketball season. Hope you'll sign up for that. For Joey Dwyer, I'm Chris Lee. We're Vandy Sports. We'll see you again soon.